Former Indian cricketer Chetan Chauhan, who had been admitted in the hospital after testing positive for COVID-19, breathed his last a while ago. The 73-year-old, who was also a cabinet minister in Uttar Pradesh government, was admitted at the Sanjay Gandhi PGI Hospital in Lucknow after testing positive for coronavirus on the 12th of July. PM Modi has also expressed his condolences over the demise of Chetan Chauhan. Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath, has expressed deep sorrow over the passing away of the minister and former cricketer. Now managing editor Vinay Tiwari joining me on the phone line. Vinay, good evening. Just news that we are playing out right now of the unfortunate death of former cricketer Chetan Chauhan and serving minister in the UP government. Of course, he was a stalwart in Indian cricket, but also made huge strides in politics.
Yes, he did. And unfortunately, Chetan Chauhan plays cricket in an era when there was very little television, and hence the modern generation perhaps may not be fully well versed with the kind of cricketer that he was. But Afrida, he was the most successful opening partner for the Indian legend Sunil Gavaskar. There was an era when Gavaskar was probably the most solid opening batsman in the world. But on the other end, there was almost a procession of 13 or 14 openers who must have played alongside Gavaskar, and none of them could actually last for more than a year or so, or more than a series or two. Such was the brilliance of Gavaskar at the one end and the so-called non-performance of the other. It was Chetan Chauhan who ended up becoming his longest-serving partner. In fact, very few people would probably know that the record for the most number of runs by an Indian partnership was actually broken only when Sehwag and Gambhir started opening together. Till then, the Gavaskar-Chetan Chauhan opening partnership was the most successful one in Indian cricket, Afrida. What was also very, very unusual about Chetan Chauhan was that he was often called the unluckiest cricketer in the world. I mean, he was actually the only batsman in the world who scored over 2,000 test runs without ever having scored 100. He got out on the 90s several times, and each time he would get on the 90s, the radio commentators in those days, because there was no television, they would call him the unluckiest cricketer in the world. Very gritty, very determined, was a huge fighter on the field. But unfortunately, in his fight against the COVID crisis, he seemed to have lost that battle and has now passed away, Frida.
Right. Vinay, you're such a cricket enthusiast, and of course, there'll be a lot more that we would want to discuss with you about Chetan Chauhan. Do stay with us. Miling Rege, former cricketer, also joining me on the phone line. Good evening, Mr. Rege. Of course, we have unfortunate news of Mr. Chetan Chauhan passing away this evening. Your first thoughts about Mr. Chauhan and his contribution to cricket?
Yeah, I'm very saddened by this news because Chetan and I played a lot of cricket together at the university level and with each other, against each other. When he played for Maharashtra, he was a lovely person, and I think he was a fantastic, gutsy opener. Along with Sunil Gavaskar, he formed a formidable Indian opening batting lineup. And if my stats are correct, he had, I think, about 11 or 12 century partnerships with Sunil Gavaskar. And that's against the ferocious Thompson and Company. So it's no mean achievement. And Chetan was a wonderful person. He also was a very good administrator. He rose to the position of vice president of BCCA. He was a selector. He was a coach. And he did everything that he could for the betterment of the game. And this is terrible news, really, really sad news, because it's like losing a dear friend. It's a very sad news. And I am so saddened by this whole thing. It's come as a big shock to me, really.
Right. Vinay, coming back to you on that, of course, right now, the news is just being spread and people are still soaking in this piece of news that we are sharing. But at the moment, I also want to ask you, since you said that he was the longest serving partner, in a way, he's most remembered for his partnership, for his opening partnership with the legendary Sunil Gavaskar. Beyond that, as well as even in the field of cricket administration, he had contributed and he was very active.
He was. Look, I mean, Mr. Chauhan got elected to the Lok Sabha at a time when, the whole idea and culture of cricketers entering politics was not so common. I mean, it's much more common now. I mean, he actually entered Lok Sabha in 1991, much before this whole, recession of other cricketers and other celebrity stars who went into politics had started. And he was a very successful one as well. He won more than one election. Then of course he lost to a couple of elections in the Lok Sabha as well. But this time when the UP elections, assembly elections happened, he contested as an MLA and won as well. And that's one reason why he was drafted into the cabinet straight away, because he does have administrative skills, as you said. He served cricket in many capacities, but he's also served in political capacities as well. I mean, even as an MP, he was a member of certain standing committees as well, and had played his part in shaping foreign policy and other things. And I think, as Milind rightly said, he was quite a amiable man, not the kind of person who, and no one would end up disliking. You would immediately take a liking for him. That was the kind of person he was. And Milind was lucky enough to have him play alongside in Maharashtra, though he actually belonged to Uttar Pradesh. He was born in Bareilly. But I think his father was in the armed forces and hence got transferred and was in Maharashtra. That's when he started playing for Maharashtra. I wish he had played his cricket more in the era when there were cameras around, because his gutsiness, which Milind was talking about, is something that a younger generation probably don't realize. I remember that was the era when people played without helmets. And to face up to those kind of fast bowlers as an opener was quite an achievement.
Yes.
And aside of Gavaskar, it was only probably Chetan Chauhan who stood up to that kind of ferocious bowling, despite the lack of protective equipment that existed in the eras of 60s, 70s and the 80s. So quite a remarkable player. And as I said, misfortune for the generation that they haven't been able to see him as much, because there wasn't too much video in those days about cricket. But, if anyone who has heard cricket commentary on the radio through the years would know that Chetan Chauhan was one name which resonated in every single cricket commentary that you would hear, not just in India, but anywhere else in the world, because he was considered one of the best openers you could have had. A lot of people criticized him for being a slow player, but I don't think they're being fair in not realizing that those were the days when, the speed of scoring runs was not really the main point. It was how long you were able to stay at the wicket and how much, courage you could show in simply standing in front of a very, very hostile bowling attack that you saw, not only from West Indies, but also possibly from Australian fast bowlers as well, Frida.
Right. So he was quite active in public life, even as a politician. In fact, he was serving as a senior member of the cabinet in Uttar Pradesh government. The UP chief minister, in fact, shared the sad news about his demise earlier today. Vinay Tiwari, Miling Rege, thank you so much for joining us with your thoughts this evening.
मंडल के वरिष्ठ सहयोगी, पूर्व अंतर्राष्ट्रीय क्रिकेटर श्री चेतन चौहान जी नहीं रहे। यह मेरे सभी और मंत्रिमंडल के सहयोगियों के लिए, अमरोहा जनपद के नागरिकों के लिए और उत्तर प्रदेश वासियों के लिए एक अपूर्णीय क्षति है। खेल जगत की भी अपूर्णीय क्षति है। वे जितने लोकप्रिय खिलाड़ी थे, उतना ही लोकप्रिय जननेता भी थे। 2 बार लोकसभा का चुनाव जीतना, 2017 में नौगांवा विधानसभा क्षेत्र से विधायक के रूप में चुनाव जीतना और एक सेलिब्रिटी होने के बावजूद जनता के बीच में जाकर के जनसेवा के साथ ही जिस प्रकार से उन्होंने खेल को प्रोत्साहित करने के लिए भी और समाज जीवन के अलग अलग फील्ड में जाकर के अच्छे कार्य किए थे, वह सदैव यानी अविस्मरणीय रहेंगे। उनका जाना सरकार के लिए और पूरे प्रदेश वासियों के लिए और क्रिकेट जगत के लिए एक अपूर्णीय क्षति है। श्री चेतन चौहान जी पिछले 1 महीने से गुरुग्राम हरियाणा के मेदांता मेडिसिटी में उनका उपचार चल रहा था। यद्यपि उससे काफ़ी उनको बीच में रिलीफ मिली थी, लेकिन परसों अचानक सेप्टिसीमिया में चले गए थे और तब से लाइफ सपोर्ट पर चल रहे थे आज सायंकाल 5 बजे ही उन्होंने अंतिम सांस ली है। मैंने स्वर्गीय चेतन चौहान जी के परिवार के सदस्यों के साथ अभी बातचीत की है। उनकी धर्मपत्नी जी से, उनके पुत्र से, पुत्र उनका मेलबोर्न ऑस्ट्रेलिया में रहता है और आज ही वह गुरुग्राम में पहुंचे हैं। कल से चेतन चौहान जी का अंतिम संस्कार होगा। अभी 7 बजे हमारी आकस्मिक कैबिनेट बैठक होगी, तो हम इस संबंध में प्रस्ताव पारित करेंगे और दिवंगत आत्मा को अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करेंगे।